Hey everyone, it's Aviation Buff. Before we begin today, please check out warbirdbunker.com for cool warbird and aviation merchandise. Link is in the description. Sales help save aviation history. Hey everyone, it's Aviation Buff. It's been a while since I made a video. Sorry about that. Work, life, and the Christmas time season has kept me busy. Anyway, last year I made a pretty brief video on the Brewster F3A Corsair, and I wanted to make another video rehashing some myths about the Brewster Corsair because there's some new details and information that have recently came to light on the Brewster produced Corsair version of aircraft. As I've said in many videos, I don't believe in the worst aircraft. I think every aircraft out there has its plus and minuses, and they all have myths surrounding each aircraft. I mean, years ago, the P-40 Warhawk, which is my favorite airplane of all time, used to be called the worst aircraft of World War II, but since then, through more constructive research and interviews with P-40 veteran pilots, it's been determined that the P-40 was, in fact, a capable aircraft. And I always feel bad when people hate the Brewster Aircraft Company and Brewster Aircraft. I always think there's something more to it than just a reputation. There's always more to it than just what people say. And I think it does a great disservice to aviation history when people bash aircraft and aircraft manufacturers. I think it just does a big disservice. And if people researched properly and see both sides of them, sometimes you find new details that have never been mentioned. And I think the Brewster built Corsair is one of those aircraft. The Brewster Buffalo is one of my favorite aircraft. It really is. I've always had a fondness for the Brewster Buffalo. All through the years, the Brewster Corsair has always had a bad reputation of being a poorly made aircraft. And I have always wondered if this was really true. Brewster in general has been considered a bad company that built bad airplanes. In the last 10 years, there has been discussions by both aviation historians and aircraft restorers that have scrutinized the bad reputation of Brewster, and in particular the poor reputation of the Brewster F3A Corsair. I think there has been enough questions raised that warrants a closer look to the Brewster-built Corsair and ask if it's as bad as history makes it out to be. The Brewster F3A Corsair has been considered a poorly designed aircraft with inferior parts and issues with the wings coming off in flight. All F3A Corsairs had been assigned to training units in the United States, and with the Fleet Air Arm receiving more than half of the Brewster Corsair production, none of the Brewster Corsairs had seen combat. But most people do not realize that in general the Corsair was a widowmaker. It was not an easy aircraft to fly and it bit many pilots. From 1943 until 1945, over 2,000 Corsairs had been involved in accidents. Many of these accidents were during training exercises, and I have looked over most of the accidents reports involving F3A Corsairs. Most of the F3A accidents are due to familiarization flights, nighttime flight collisions, and gunnery training accidents. That's the main reason why the F3A Corsair was bad, is that it was shredding its wings during flight. The F3A wing failures have been recently debated and scrutinized. Some discussion points that the wing root failure was due to another issue or is false entirely. In fact, I recently talked to the good folks at Vulture's Row Aviation. They specialize in restoring Corsairs to flying condition. They have a top-notch restoration facility. And I had recently asked them if the F3A Corsair were that bad. And they told me no, the Brewster Corsairs have the same build quality as the Vought and Goodyear Corsairs. Vulture's Row even have Brewster-built Corsair parts in their inventory, including wing attachment parts. They said the Brewster parts are of good quality. I would take this as significance. It's also worth noting that the early production of F3A Corsairs had wing parts made by Vought Sikorsky and Briggs Manufacturing. Brewster's main downfall was that they could not meet the production of aircraft they had promised to the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy wanted aircraft from Brewster, and I think that alone says a lot. The U.S. Navy eventually took over most of Brewster's operations in late 1942, mainly because Brewster wasn't meeting their aircraft production as they had promised. This was poor management dealings that most people bring up about the Brewster Corporation. There are other allegations against the Brewster Aeronautical Corporation of bad dealings, Nazi sympathizers, sabotaging aircraft production, and other issues. I'm not here to make a video on those topics. I think a lot of that is hearsay, and nothing has really came to light as proof to any of that has ever happened with Brewster. I really have to doubt that most of the people in the Brewster plant that were building Brewster aircraft wanted to sabotage your work. I'm sure most employees of Brewster wanted to make an effort towards the war effort, and the U.S. Navy wanted Brewster built aircraft, and I think a lot of that is worth noting. I think there's enough there that people are questioning that the Brewster Corsair really wasn't that bad as people think. I think a reputation sometimes does more harm than good, and people run with a bad reputation. A lot of people that say the Brewster Corsair is bad today are just going by what they heard and read from other people, and doesn't necessarily mean that it's factual information. Anyway, that's all I really had today. I'm sure this doesn't change people's minds on Brewster and the Brewster Corsair, but I think there's been enough conversation between aviation historians, restorers, and other people that love aviation history that I think there's another side of the Brewster Corsair that hasn't been talked about. Thanks everyone for watching my videos. Till next time, bye.